Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudes, and this show is the 34th segment in the DC TV series on the network of global corporate control. Today's segment is following up on a prayer of Ferdinand Marcos. If America fails, then the world is lost. At the end of World War II, Ferdinand Marcos, who was the lawyer for José Rizal, who was the superior general of the Jesuits at the time, put the world's international monetary gold reserves and other wealth into a trust for the benefit of humanity for 50 years. That trust is called the Global Debt Facility, and it's administered by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. The Board of Governors is 188 ministers of finance and development. I'm the lawyer for the Global Debt Facility. The Federal Reserve does not have the United States monetary gold reserves, and neither does the U.S. Treasury. The Global Debt Facility has put liens on the Federal Reserve in the 11 states where the Federal Reserve banks are located. That's because the Federal Reserve is bankrupt. That's because the Federal Reserve has actually issued over $200 trillion back in the 30s, and those bonds, they're called Treaty of Versailles bonds, they've been compounding interest. They're now worth over $2 quadrillion. So we don't owe the Fed money on country debt. It's actually that all of the country debt can be offset against this $2 quadrillion. The Fed's dishonesty in refusing to admit that people do not hold valid legal title to their property, that federal judges are sitting in bogus courts that are not the courts in Article 3 of the Constitution, because the United States federal government is being run according to a second secret constitution that the banks put into place in 1871, instead of the Constitution of 1789 that many people still think is in effect. People's opinion of the legal profession has tanked. So has their opinion of journalists. 2/3 say the national news media has a negative effect on the country. And just this past week, I tweeted something which was retweeted 52 times. I said, let's face it, none of the media is telling the truth. And the reason why is because the media is owned by this network of global corporate control. We know this for a fact because 3 mathematicians at the Federal Institute of Technology did an analysis of who owns the 43,000 companies on the capital markets, and they found out that it's actually all one company. This network of global corporate control is really one single conglomerate. That's because the board of directors of these companies have the same people on them in interlocking. It's called a bow tie arrangement. It's a very interesting study. I would recommend that you read it. It's been published since 2011, and it's really quite extraordinary that this has not received more press coverage. That's because the media, as I said, is bought and paid for by the network of global corporate control. No government has challenged my statement that I'm legal counsel to the Global Debt Facility. Instead, each day brings new information as more and more people are catching on. Why is the United States one of the last holdouts for the network of global corporate control? One reason is because its people are armed. The Second Amendment reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Calls for stricter gun control after reports of mass shooting at San Bernardino. That's not the way people see it. They're stocking up on more guns. The Pew Research Center found last December that 57% of Americans say they believe owning a gun helps protect people from crime. That's up from 48% in 2012. And I'd like to show a clip right now talking about the Second Amendment. The World Bank and its sister organization, the International Monetary Fund, are very special organizations. They are sitting on top of the world's wealth, which was put into a secret account, and it has more gold than anybody knows about. And it is cloaked in secrecy. The bankers do not own that money. It's held in benefit for humanity. The World Bank and the IMF are listed on a special agreement that was signed in 1950 about that. Assets, it's gold. It's more gold than people know about. It's over 1 million metric tons of gold. And the World Bank and the IMF have a special role to play, making sure that that money is spent to the benefit of humanity.
So where's the gold? Some people believe that the gold in Fort Knox has disappeared. That's been in question for many years. Congressmen have attempted to get an audit of the gold in Fort Knox. So 1 million metric tons of gold is not something you can just hide. Where would you say that that gold is being stored?
400,000 metric tons are in the Central Bank of the Philippines. There's over 200,000 metric tons in Union Bank of Switzerland. And some of that gold is buried securely in the Philippines as well. Some of it is held in various banks, but the bulk of it is in the Philippines.
So the World Bank holds the note on that gold?
No. It is in a special trust account that was set up by Ferdinand Marcos, and the authorized signatory is a German banker lawyer by the name of Wolfgang Struck, who also lives in the Philippines.
So how do the people get the gold back? If it's their gold and it was taken by these bankers, how do we receive it?
That is the question. And they're just sitting there illegally and refusing to relinquish it. Part of the problem is that this gold is cloaked in secrecy. But in the last month, Wolfgang Struck has been publishing all of the documentation. So it's there for people to see. We have the originals. And people just have to make sure that the banks do what they're required to do, which is release the world's wealth.